The human survey ship Calypso Drift was not supposed to be anywhere near the Velrix corridor. It was a quiet route, mostly ignored, used only by small traders and automated probes. Lieutenant Aaron Hale stood on the bridge, watching the slow drift of stars, thinking the mission would end without anything worth reporting. Then the alarm screamed. A damaged alien vessel burst from subspace ahead of them, hull torn open, engines failing. Behind it came 3 pirate ships, fast and ugly, weapons already charging. Captain Moreno did not hesitate. Full burn, weapons free. Get between them and that ship. No one questioned the order. The Calypso Drift was not a warship. It was lightly armed, built for mapping and research. But humans had a habit of stepping in first and thinking later. The pirates did not expect resistance. Their opening shots missed as the human ship slid into position, taking hits meant for the alien vessel. Shields flared. Consoles sparked. Aaron worked the logistics station, rerouting power, calling damage reports, hands steady even as the ship shook. He did not know who they were saving. It did not matter. The fight was short and violent. Human gunnery was blunt and precise. One pirate ship broke apart. Another fled. The third tried to ram and died for the attempt. Silence followed, broken only by the hum of damaged systems. The alien vessel drifted, powerless. Captain Moreno ordered a rescue. Inside the alien ship, the humans found something none of them expected. She was tall, slender, and clearly not human. Her skin shimmered faintly, patterned with natural markings that shifted as she moved. Her eyes were large, focused, and calm despite the destruction around her. She stood unarmed, surrounded by wounded crew, giving orders in a steady voice. When she saw the humans, she inclined her head. "I am Virelia Ka," she said in careful, translated English. "You intervened without request. I acknowledge the debt." Captain Moreno waved it off. "We saw someone in trouble, that's all." Virelia studied them closely. Her gaze lingered not on the captain, not on the armed Marines, but on Aaron, who was quietly helping a wounded alien engineer to stand. Something unreadable passed through her expression. Repairs took hours. The alien vessel was too damaged to travel alone. The Calypso Drift escorted it to the nearest Concord station, a massive structure that served as neutral ground for dozens of species. News traveled faster than ships ever could. By the time they arrived, the station was already buzzing. Aaron noticed it first. The stares. The way alien officials whispered as Virelia passed. The sudden attention from security forces that had ignored the humans moments before. He pulled Captain Moreno aside. "Ma'am? Who exactly did we rescue?" Before she could answer, Virelia herself approached. "You have caused disruption," Virelia said calmly. "Not through error, through action." Moreno crossed her arms. "If we broke some rule, we can file a report." Virelia shook her head. "There is no punishment, only consequence." That consequence arrived in the form of the Galactic Concord Assembly. Within hours, humans who barely rated a footnote in Concord politics were summoned before representatives of major powers. Aaron found himself standing at the back of the chamber, wishing very hard to be anywhere else. Virelia stood at the center. This human ship intervened during a sanctioned transit. An avian delegate snapped. "They interfered with matters beyond their status." "They saved lives," Moreno replied. "They saved a breeding candidate," another voice said coldly. The chamber fell silent. Aaron felt the words but did not understand them. Virelia raised one hand, and the room obeyed. "I am the youngest breeding candidate recognized in this sector," she said. "My genetic line, cognitive profile, and leadership potential are bound to my species' future. My loss would have altered long-term projections." Murmurs rippled outward. Aaron's stomach dropped. "And yet," Virelia continued, "these humans did not know this. They did not ask. They did not negotiate. They placed themselves between danger and strangers." She turned and looked directly at Aaron. "Under our customs, such action demands acknowledgement." Aaron froze. "This is getting uncomfortable," he muttered. "Too late." "I invoke the right of worth," Virelia said. The chamber erupted. "That is not appropriate." "You cannot. She is too young." Virelia did not raise her voice. She did not need to. "I name my prize," she said. Aaron felt like the floor vanished beneath him. "I name the human Aaron Hale." Silence crashed down, heavy and absolute. Aaron stared. "I'm sorry," he said, voice cracking. "You've made a mistake." Varelia's expression softened. "No." Security forces tensed. Diplomatic channels lit up. Across the sector, systems began recording, analyzing, predicting. Captain Moreno stepped forward. "This officer does not consent to whatever this is." Varelia nodded. "Consent is required. That is why this matters." She faced the assembly again. "This human may refuse. If he does, the right dissolves. There will be no penalty." All eyes returned to Aaron. His mind raced. He was a logistics officer. He filed supply requests. He planned routes. He was not important. "I don't want power," he said finally. "I don't want status. I don't want to be used to start a war." Varelia listened carefully. "I want you safe," Aaron added. "That's it." Whispers spread again, different this time. Varelia inclined her head. "That answer confirms my choice." The chamber exploded into chaos. Accusations followed immediately. Manipulation. Exploitation. Some claimed humans had engineered the rescue. Others demanded Varelia be removed from human influence for her own protection. Aaron felt sick. "This is wrong," he said quietly to Moreno later. "I should step away. Now." 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. "You didn't do anything wrong," Moreno said. "But they're scared." She was right. Alien analysts began tearing through human history. They expected ambition. They found stubborn endurance. They expected conquest. They found refusal to surrender even when losing. The more they looked, the worse it got. Varelia was moved under joint protection. Humans were assigned to her security team, temporarily. Threats followed. Political pressure mounted. Aaron requested reassignment. It was denied. One night, as the station's artificial lights dimmed, Aaron found Varelia standing alone at a viewport, watching stars. "I didn't ask for this," he said. "Neither did I," she replied. "Then why me?" She considered. "Because your species does not trade safety for advantage. You acted without knowing the reward. That is rare." "That doesn't make me special." "No," she agreed. "It makes you human." Outside the station, fleets quietly shifted position. Inside the Concorde, emergency sessions multiplied. The galaxy had just learned something it did not expect. Humans did not seek prizes. But once chosen, they did not walk away. And the sector was about to learn what that meant. The Concorde station had never felt so small. Corridors once filled with calm trade and polite diplomacy now carried tension that could be tasted in the air. Security drones hovered closer to walls. Delegates traveled with guards. Every conversation stopped when a human walked past. Aaron Hale felt it more than most. He was no longer just a logistics officer. To the Concorde, he was a problem that refused to fit into any known category. Every morning, he was escorted from his quarters to a meeting room where officials asked the same questions in different ways. Did he understand the right of worth? Had he been coached? Was humanity attempting to gain influence through Varelia Ka? Every morning, his answers stayed the same. "I didn't plan this. I don't want power. I don't want control." They never looked satisfied. Across the station, Varelia was under what the Concorde called protective oversight. In reality, it felt like a cage made of polite words. Guards from multiple species watched her at all times. Committees debated her future, while she stood only meters away. Unable to speak unless permitted, she endured it without complaint, but she watched. Varelia noticed everything. The way humans spoke quietly to each other, sharing information freely. The way they checked on injured alien crew members even days after the rescue. The way they argued openly with their own superiors when something felt wrong. To her people, hierarchy was rigid. To humans, it was flexible, questioned, and sometimes ignored. That difference mattered more than any weapon. The first real challenge came during an emergency session of the Assembly. A coalition of 3 major powers presented a motion. Virelia would be relocated to a neutral sanctuary, separated from human influence, until a full investigation was complete. Aaron was seated behind the human delegation, hands clenched. Captain Moreno rose to speak. "You're asking us to step aside while you imprison someone who has committed no crime." "This is not imprisonment," replied a crystalline delegate. "It is preservation." Virelia finally spoke. "You are afraid," she said calmly. "Not for me. Of them." She gestured toward the humans. The chamber stirred. "You fear that if my choice stands," she continued, "it will reveal weaknesses in your systems. That loyalty cannot be forced. That protection does not require ownership." A reptilian representative hissed. "Your choice endangers the balance." Aaron stood without thinking. Captain Moreno shot him a warning look, but it was too late. "I don't want this," Aaron said loudly. "If my presence causes conflict, I will leave the station. I'll renounce the right." The room fell quiet again. Virelia turned to him, eyes sharp. "You would abandon protection to restore comfort." "I would do it to prevent war," Aaron replied. That answer sent another wave through the chamber. Humanity was offering to give up advantage again. The motion was delayed, not defeated. Time was bought, nothing more. That night, the first attempt was made. It came without warning. Station lights flickered. Security systems stuttered. A section of the habitat ring went dark. Human security teams reacted instantly. They did not wait for orders. They moved. Aaron was pulled from his quarters by 2 Marines and rushed through maintenance corridors toward a secured location. He could hear distant impacts, the sharp crack of weapons fire. "This is supposed to be neutral space," he said, breathless. "Neutral doesn't mean safe," a Marine replied. Across the station, a strike team attempted to reach Virelia. They wore Concord insignia, but their weapons were live, their intent clear. They never made it. Human defenders did not kill unless forced. They blocked corridors, collapsed access points, used their own bodies as shields. Several were wounded, none retreated. When the lights came back on, the attackers were disarmed and restrained. The official report called it a security breach. No one believed it. The message was clear. Someone was willing to risk open violence to take Virelia away. The Concord reacted with outrage. Investigations were launched. Blame was carefully spread thin enough to avoid direct accusations. But something had changed. Species that once dismissed humans as reckless now watched them with new interest. Human doctrine was studied in detail. Analysts noticed patterns that unsettled them. Humans did not escalate quickly. But when they committed, they did so fully. They prioritized protection over dominance. They did not abandon allies, even when doing so would be logical. Virelia requested a private meeting with the human delegation. It was granted, reluctantly. "You offered to renounce the right," she said to Aaron once they were alone. "Yes." "Why?" "Because I don't want people hurt because of me." Virelia nodded slowly. "Your people view responsibility differently. You accept burden even when it is not assigned. That's just being decent. To us," she said, "it is being dangerous." Outside the meeting room, the station trembled as ships arrived. Fleets, not attack formations, not yet, but they were close enough to send a message. Pressure increased. Sanctions against human trade routes were proposed. Human embassies received warnings. Allies were quietly encouraged to distance themselves. Earth's response was calm, too calm. Human diplomats did not shout. They did not threaten. They asked questions. They requested time. They moved ships to defensive positions that happened to protect evacuation corridors and civilian hubs. Virelia observed it all. "You are preparing for loss," she said during one of their conversations. "We plan for worst cases," Aaron replied. "And if the worst comes?" He did not answer immediately. "We'll stand," he said finally. The next attempt came in the open. A formal order was issued by a narrow assembly vote. Varelia would be transferred to Concord custody within 48 hours. Human protection would be removed. The station buzzed with activity. Some species celebrated. Others watched in silence. Aaron met Captain Moreno in the corridor. "This is where it breaks," he said. Moreno shook her head. "No, this is where it shows." Human ships began docking at the station. Officially, they were there for rotation and resupply. Unofficially, every corridor, airlock, and control node was mapped. Varelia stood before the viewport again, stars reflected in her eyes. "They believe you are the liability," she said softly. "They might be right." She turned to face him. "No, you are the test." The galaxy had pushed humanity into a corner, expecting submission or collapse. What it did not understand was that humans did not lash out when threatened. They held the line, and the line was about to be crossed. The transfer order spread through Concord Station like a sickness. 48 hours. That was how long the assembly had given before Varelia Ka would be removed from human protection and placed under full Concord custody. The words sounded legal and calm, but everyone knew what they meant. Once she was moved, humans would have no voice. Her choice would be erased quietly, officially, and forever. Aaron Hale stood in a narrow observation corridor, watching ships arrive through the transparent hull. They came in steady lines, heavy cruisers and command vessels from multiple species. None of them announced hostile intent. None of them needed to. Captain Moreno joined him, arms folded. "They're forming a net," she said. "Control space, control movement, force compliance, without firing the first shot." Aaron nodded. "And if we resist, they'll call us the aggressors." Human command had responded within hours of the order. Not with speeches, with lists, maps, and contingency plans. More human ships arrived. Fewer in number but positioned carefully. They did not block traffic. They did not challenge patrols. They placed themselves where civilians would run. If things went wrong, it was a quiet statement. If violence came, humans would be standing between danger and everyone else. Varelia remained calm. Too calm. She spent her time walking the station under guard, speaking with workers, medics, engineers. She asked questions about humans, about Earth, about why they resisted when logic suggested retreat. "They think you are emotional," she said to Aaron during one walk. "That you act without foresight." Aaron gave a tired smile. "We plan. We just don't always like the plan." The final 12 hours arrived. Security forces not aligned with humans began positioning closer to Varelia's quarters. Concord officials issued notices asking civilians to remain indoors for their own safety. Transit lanes were reduced. Power routing was adjusted. Every change was small. Together, they formed a noose. Human crews noticed everything. At 6 hours remaining, the first confrontation occurred. A Concord security detachment attempted to replace the human guard unit outside Varelia's section. The order was legal. The timing was deliberate. The human unit refused to move. No weapons were raised. No voices were shouted. They simply stood. Minutes passed. More security arrived. Then more humans. The corridor filled with armed beings from different species, facing each other in tight space. Any mistake would start it. Aaron watched from a side passage, heart pounding. "This is insane," he whispered. Varelia stood beside him. "This is choice," she replied. The standoff lasted nearly an hour. Finally, the Concord detachment withdrew. Officially, it was a delay for clarification. Unofficially, it was the first crack. The order came down soon after. Transfer would proceed immediately. Multiple entry points. Overwhelming presence. No negotiation. Human command acknowledged receipt. Then they stopped responding. Across the station, doors locked where they needed to. Access codes changed. Elevators stalled between decks. Navigation systems lagged by fractions of a second that added up at the worst times. Nothing failed completely. Everything slowed. Conquered forces advanced anyway. They reached the first human defensive line near Varelia's sector and halted in confusion. Their routes no longer matched the station maps. Human teams appeared where they were not expected. redirecting civilians, sealing off side corridors. A Concord commander opened a channel. "This resistance violates assembly order," the commander said. "Stand down," Captain Moreno answered calmly. "Negative. We are conducting civilian protection operations. You are obstructing lawful transfer. We are preventing harm." The channel cut. That was when the shooting started. It was brief, sharp, terrifying. Conquered forces fired first, aiming to disable, to push through. Human shields absorbed the impact. Armor cracked. Bodies fell. Humans did not charge. They denied. Smoke filled corridors. Barricades dropped. Bulkheads sealed. Concord forces found themselves slowed, separated, forced into narrow paths where numbers meant nothing. Aaron was pulled back as fighting moved closer. "We're not winning," he said to Moreno. "We're just holding." "That's the point," she replied. Hours passed like that. No decisive victory. No retreat. Just resistance that would not break. Outside the station, fleets shifted. Concord commanders demanded escalation authority. They did not receive it. Too many civilians. Too much uncertainty. Too many eyes watching. Virelia watched feeds from multiple angles, her expression unreadable. "They do not understand this kind of conflict," she said. "You are not trying to defeat them." "No," Aaron said. "We're trying to make them stop." The next move came from outside. A Concord cruiser moved into position near the station's primary power array, its weapons charged, not aimed at humans, but at the structure itself. A threat. Human ships reacted instantly. They moved into firing lines, placing themselves between the cruiser and the station. Shields flared. Warnings blared across all channels. "This action endangers civilians," Captain Moreno broadcast. "Withdraw." The cruiser held position. For the first time since the crisis began, Earth Command sent a direct message. It was short. "Do not fire. Do not advance. Hold." Aaron felt a chill. They were willing to take it. The Concord cruiser powered its weapons higher. Human ships did not move. Across the station, fighting slowed as word spread. Both sides realized how close they were to disaster. Virelia stepped forward. She accessed an open channel, overriding protests, broadcasting to the entire assembly and every ship in range. "Enough," she said. Her voice carried authority older than the Concord itself. "You claim this transfer is for stability," she continued. "Yet you threaten a station filled with civilians. You claim humans are reckless. Yet they place themselves in harm's way to protect others." She paused. "You fear what they represent." Silence followed. "They do not conquer. They do not demand. They choose. And once they choose, they endure." The cruiser powered down, slowly. Across the station, Concord forces received new orders. Withdraw. Disengage. Cease operations. It was not a victory announcement. No one admitted defeat. But the line had held. Medical teams moved in. Injured from all sides were treated by human medics without discrimination. That image spread faster than any speech. Aaron sat on the floor of a quiet corridor, exhausted, hands shaking. Virelia sat beside him. "They crossed the line," she said softly. "And we didn't," he replied. She studied him. "Your species terrifies them now." He let out a weak laugh. "Good. Maybe they'll leave us alone." She shook her head. "No. They will rethink everything." Outside the station, fleets repositioned farther away. Inside the Concord, emergency sessions resumed, quieter this time. The galaxy had tested humanity. Humanity had not broken. And everyone understood now that if the line was crossed again, humans would still be there standing, silent, unyielding. The real consequences were only beginning. The days after the standoff felt unreal. Concord Station was quiet in a way it had never been before. Corridors that once echoed with arguments and hurried steps were now slow and careful. Delegates spoke in lower voices. Security patrols were fewer, but more alert. Everyone understood how close the sector had come to disaster. Human medics were still busy. They treated anyone who came to them. Conquered forces. Station staff. Even those who had fired weapons at humans only days before. No one was turned away. No one was questioned. That detail did not go unnoticed. Aaron Hale spent most of his time in recovery areas, helping where he could. He carried supplies, logged reports, listened to the injured talk through fear and confusion. He did not feel like a hero. He felt tired. Virelia visited him there. "You place no conditions," she observed as a human medic treated a wounded Concord officer. "Why would we?" Aaron replied. "They're hurt. To many species," she said, "mercy is leverage." He shrugged. "Then they don't understand us." The Concord Assembly reconvened 3 days later. This time, the chamber was full in a different way. No shouting. No accusations thrown like weapons. Every delegate knew the rules had changed. Virelia stood at the center again, but this time she was not surrounded by guards. She had refused them. "I will speak freely," she told the assembly. Or, not at all. They allowed it. "You attempted to remove my choice," she began. "You justified it as stability. You justified it as protection. What you created instead was fear." Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. "You tested humanity," she continued. "Not because they threatened you, but because you could not measure them. You do not understand a species that refuses power yet will die to protect." She turned slowly, letting her gaze pass over the chamber. "My people select breeding candidates not for reproduction alone," she said. "We select for foresight, for resilience, for the ability to guide our future through uncertainty." She gestured toward the human delegation. "I chose them because they showed me something rare. They do not bind through force. They bind through choice." A crystalline delegate spoke carefully. "And what is it you propose?" Virelia's answer was calm. "Recognition." The chamber stirred. "I ask that the right of worth be honored," she said. "Not as ownership, not as leverage, but as alliance." Aaron's heart pounded as she continued. "I formally bind my future, and that of my people, to humanity not above them, not beneath them, but beside them." Silence followed. Then questions came. Careful ones, legal ones, political ones. Human diplomats answered plainly. No demands. No threats. No requests for territory or authority. They asked for only 3 things: recognition of choice, protection of civilians, and the right to walk away if the alliance ever became coercive. It took hours. By the end, the vote passed. Not unanimously, but enough. The Concord acknowledged the bond. Across the sector, reactions rippled outward. Some governments were furious, others relieved. Many quietly reevaluated their assumptions. Humanity did not gain control of fleets or councils. What they gained was something harder to fight: trust. Virelia's people began cultural exchange with Earth within weeks. Scientists shared data. Medics compared techniques. Philosophers debated ethics late into the night. They were surprised by how often humans disagreed with each other. "You argue constantly," one alien scholar remarked. "Yes," a human replied. "That's how we check ourselves." Aaron returned to duty shortly after. His title did not change. His rank did not increase. He requested reassignment back to survey operations. It was approved. Before his departure, he met Virelia one last time aboard the station. "You don't have to keep this," he told her. "The bond. If it causes problems later." She stopped him with a raised hand. "This bond exists because it can be ended," she said. "That is why it is strong." He nodded slowly. "Will the sector leave us alone now?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "No." He laughed. "Didn't think so." Outside the station, human ships departed quietly. No victory parade. No declarations. Just movement. Months passed. When border disputes flared between rival species, human mediators were requested. When evacuation corridors were threatened by stellar events, human ships were invited to assist. When piracy spiked in unstable regions, humans arrived not to conquer, but to escort. They did not take territory. They took responsibility. The Concord adapted. Slowly, policies shifted. Forced compliance models were questioned. Voluntary alliances increased. The idea that protection required control began to fade. Varelia's people thrived under the new model. Their future projections stabilized. Their culture evolved, and humanity's reputation changed, not as conquerors, as anchors. Years later, a new crisis erupted at the edge of the sector. An unknown force, aggressive and unyielding, swept through border systems. Ignoring diplomacy, emergency sessions were called. Debates began, then stopped. A single question was asked: are the humans involved? When the answer came back yes, panic eased. Human fleets moved to intercept, placing themselves between the threat and civilian worlds. They issued no speeches. They made no demands. They held the line. Aaron Hale watched the situation reports from the bridge of a survey ship, older now, more experienced. He thought back to a quiet corridor, a terrified station, and a choice he never wanted to make. Varelia's message arrived shortly after. Once again, she said, you stand without being asked. He smiled. That's what we do. The galaxy had learned many lessons from humanity, but the most important was simple. Humans did not seek to rule the future. They chose to protect it. And once they chose, they did not step aside.